If you live like God is everything, these are the signs He is drawing near. There is a kind of closeness with God that does not announce itself loudly. It does not always come with overwhelming emotion or visible signs. Instead, it settles into your life quietly, steadily, until His presence becomes more real to you than anything else around you. When you live like God is everything, you begin to notice that He is no longer distant or abstract. He becomes near in a way that shapes how you breathe, how you decide, how you endure. And without anyone needing to tell you, you sense it deep within. God is drawing near. This nearness does not always feel easy. Sometimes it comes with a weight, a holy awareness that your life is no longer your own. You become sensitive to things you once ignored. You feel convicted where you once felt comfortable. You feel pulled away from distractions that used to satisfy you. When God draws near, He doesn't compete with the world for your attention. He simply becomes more important than everything else. What once filled your thoughts begins to lose its power, and what once felt urgent begins to feel small compared to Him. For those who live like God is everything, His closeness is not proven by excitement alone. It is revealed in surrender, in the quiet obedience no one applauds, in the faith that remains steady when prayers seem unanswered, in the trust that grows even when circumstances do not change. When God draws near, He reshapes your inner life. Your desires become simpler, your heart becomes softer, your spirit becomes anchored in something unshakable. You may still face uncertainty. You may still walk through struggle, but you are no longer carrying it alone. There is a peace that does not erase difficulty, but steadies you within it. A strength that does not rush ahead, but holds you firm. You begin to realize that God's presence is not something you visit. It is something you dwell in. If you have chosen to live with your heart fully turned toward God, seeking Him above comfort, loving Him beyond outcomes, trusting Him beyond understanding, this message is for you. Because when God draws near, there are signs. They are not always loud. They are not always visible to others, but they are unmistakable to the soul that belongs to Him. And as you begin to recognize them, one truth becomes clear. God has not been far away. He has been closer than you ever imagined, walking with you through every moment, revealing Himself to those who live like He is everything. Number one, God makes His presence more real than everything else. One of the clearest signs that God is drawing near is that His presence begins to feel more real to you than anything else in your life. Not louder than your circumstances, not flashier than your responsibilities, but deeper, steadier, more anchoring. You may still face pressure, uncertainty, and unanswered questions. Yet beneath it all, there is a quiet awareness that God is with you in a way you cannot shake. This nearness changes how you experience everyday life. You begin to sense God in ordinary moments, in silence, in pauses, in decisions that once felt rushed. His presence is no longer confined to prayer time or worship moments. It follows you. It surrounds you. It becomes the atmosphere your soul breathes in. Even when you are tired, even when you are unsure, you feel held. When God draws near, circumstances lose their power to define your peace. That does not mean life becomes easy. It means God becomes closer than fear, closer than noise, closer than confusion. You may notice that your reactions change. You are slower to panic, quicker to pray, more aware of God's nearness than the weight of what you are facing. In Scripture, those who lived close to God carried this awareness. They were not fearless, but they were inert. They knew where their help came from. God's nearness became their confidence, not their strength or control. This is what happens when God draws near to those who live like He is everything. If you feel God's presence lingering with you when you wake up, when you walk through your day, when you lie down at night, do not dismiss it. This is intimacy forming. God is not visiting you. He is abiding with you. And when His presence becomes more real than the world around you, It is a sign that your life is being drawn deeper into communion with Him. Number 2. God softens your heart while strengthening your spirit. Another powerful sign that God is drawing near is an inner transformation that seems almost contradictory at first. Your heart becomes softer, more tender, more sensitive, yet your spirit becomes stronger, steadier, and more resilient. You feel more deeply, but you are not easily shaken. This balance is not natural, it is spiritual. As God draws near, you become more aware of sin, pain, and brokenness, both in yourself and in others. Things that once felt insignificant now matter. Words carry weight. Choices feel sacred. You are quicker to feel compassion and slower to judge. This softness is not weakness. It is the mark of a heart being shaped by God's presence. At the same time, something within you grows stronger. You endure hardship with quiet resolve. You face disappointment without collapsing. You remain faithful even when emotions fluctuate. This strength does not come from confidence in yourself. It comes from closeness with God. The nearer He is, the less you rely on force or control. This is the kind of transformation Scripture describes when God draws near to the humble and the devoted. Hearts become tender. Spirits become firm. You no longer harden yourself to survive. You lean into God to endure. You no longer protect yourself with walls. You trust God to be your defense. If you notice that you are more sensitive to God's leading, more moved by truth, yet more stable in trials, recognize what is happening. God is drawing near. He is shaping you to reflect His heart while anchoring you in His strength. And this balance, tenderness without fragility, strength without hardness, is one of the clearest signs that God is close to those who live like He is everything. Number 3. God speaks more through stillness than noise. When God is drawing near, His voice often becomes quieter but clearer. Not because He is distant, but because He is close enough that He no longer needs to shout. You begin to recognize Him not in chaos or constant activity, but in stillness. Silence no longer feels empty. It feels full, sacred, attentive. This is one of the most intimate signs of God's nearness. You may notice a growing discomfort with noise, not just physical noise, but emotional and spiritual noise. Endless opinions, constant stimulation, and rushed decisions begin to exhaust you. Your soul starts craving quiet moments where you can simply be with God. This is not withdrawal from life. It is attunement to His presence. God is teaching you to listen with your spirit, not just your ears. As God draws near, He retrains how you hear Him. Instead of dramatic signs, He leads with gentle nudges. Instead of pressure, He gives peace. Instead of confusion, He offers clarity that settles deep within you. You start recognizing that His voice does not rush you. It steadies you. It does not overwhelm. It reassures. And it often comes when you slow down enough to notice. In Scripture, those closest to God learn to hear Him this way. God was not always in the fire or the earthquake, but in the quiet whisper. This kind of listening requires trust. It requires patience. It requires living with God at the center, not as a background presence. If you are finding that you hear God most clearly when everything else is quiet, that you receive direction not through force, but through calm conviction, this is not accidental. God is near. He is inviting you into a deeper way of walking with Him, one where you no longer chase His voice, but recognize it as it gently leads you step by step. Number 4. God begins to carry you through what you can't carry alone. One of the most tender signs that God is drawing near is that you begin to feel supported in ways you cannot explain. The weight of life does not disappear, but somehow it no longer crushes you. You face challenges that should exhaust you, yet you are sustained. You walk through moments that should break you, yet you remain standing. This is not resilience. It is divine support. When God draws near, He does not always remove the burden. He carries it with you. You may still feel weak, but you are not collapsing. You may still feel tired, but you are not alone. There is a strength raking beneath the surface, holding you steady when your own strength runs out. This is often when striving begins to fade. You stop forcing outcomes. You stop trying to control everything. You begin to rest, not because life is easy, but because you trust God's presence within it. You realize that you don't have to hold everything together. God is holding you. In Scripture, God drew near to people in their weakest moments. He sustained them when they could not sustain themselves. His nearness was revealed not in escape, but in endurance. And that same nearness shows up now, quietly carrying those who live like He is everything. If you've noticed that you are surviving seasons, you should not be able to survive. That peace finds you even when answers don't. That strength meets you exactly where you are empty. This is God drawing near. He is not asking you to be strong. He is being strong for you. And when God carries you this way, it is an invitation. An invitation to stop striving, stop pretending, and rest in His nearness. Because those who live like God is everything eventually discover this truth. When He is close, you are never carrying life alone. Number 5, God deepens your desire for Him more than His blessings. One of the most intimate signs that God is drawing near is a quiet shift in what your heart longs for. You still pray. You still hope. You still ask. But something changes beneath the surface. You begin to desire God Himself more than the answers you are waiting on. His presence becomes the reward. His nearness becomes enough. This does not happen by effort, it happens by intimacy. When God draws near, your prayers begin to sound different. They are less about outcomes and more about connection. You find yourself lingering with Him, not rushing to the next request. You seek His heart, not just His hand. Blessings no longer define your faith, relationship does. And even when prayers remain unanswered, your devotion does not weaken. This kind of desire is rare, and it is precious to God. Scripture shows that God draws close to those who seek Him wholeheartedly, not for what He gives, but for who He is. When you love God beyond convenience, beyond results, beyond visible reward, you enter a depth of communion that few experience. You may notice that success no longer satisfies you the way it once did. Comfort feels secondary. Recognition loses its pull. You are not becoming detached. You are becoming aligned. God is teaching your heart to rest in Him rather than in outcomes. And that kind of devotion attracts His nearness. If you find yourself choosing God even when blessings are delayed, trusting Him even when clarity is missing, and loving Him even when life feels heavy, recognize what is happening. God is drawing near to a heart that wants Him, not just what He can provide. And when God becomes your greatest desire, His presence becomes your greatest reward. Number 6, God distances you from what distracts you from Him. As God draws near, certain things quietly lose their place in your life. Not because they are sinful or neurotic, but because they no longer fit. Distractions that once consumed your attention feel empty. Attachments that once defined your time feel heavy. You begin to sense that anything pulling you away from God's presence is no longer worth holding on to. This distancing is gentle, but firm. God does not rip things away. He loosens their grip. You start to notice that your spirit feels unsettled around certain influences. Conversations drain you. Environments feel noisy. Activities that once filled your time now leave you restless. This is not boredom. It is discernment. When God draws near, He desires your affection to be undivided, not because He is demanding, but because He knows distraction dulls intimacy. He begins simplifying your life, not to shrink it, but to deepen it. Less noise, less clutter, more room for Him. In Scripture, those who walked closely with God lived with intentional separation, not isolation from the world, but focused toward God. Their lives were shaped by devotion, not distraction. And that same shaping happens now in those who live like God is everything. If you find yourself naturally stepping away from things that once dominated your attention, do not resist it. God is protecting the closeness He is building with you. He is guarding your heart, your time, and your sensitivity to His presence. This is not loss. It is alignment. God is making space for deeper communion. And when distractions fall away, what remains is not emptiness, but intimacy. A life quieter on the outside, but richer on the inside. A heart less divided, more anchored, and deeply aware that God is near. Number 7. God invites you into sacred trust, not control. One of the most profound signs that God is drawing near is a quiet shift from control to trust. You may not have every answer. You may not see the full picture. Yet deep within, there is a growing willingness to place your life in God's hands, without demanding certainty. This is not resignation, it is intimacy. When God is close, He does not always explain Himself. He invites you to trust Him. You begin to notice that your need to manage outcomes weakens. Anxiety loses some of its grip. You still care, but you no longer panic. You pray, but you no longer wrestle God for control. Instead of asking, "How will this work?" your heart begins asking, "Can I trust you here?" And somehow the answer feels settled. This kind of trust does not come from understanding. It comes from closeness. You trust God, not because everything makes sense, but because you know Him. His character becomes more real to you than the uncertainty in front of you. You begin to rest in who He is, rather than fear what you don't know. In Scripture, those closest to God learned to walk this way. They followed without maps. They obeyed without timelines. They trusted without guarantees. God did not give them control. He gave them Himself, and that was enough. If you feel yourself loosening your grip on plans, timelines, and expectations, do not assume you are becoming passive. You are becoming secure. God is teaching you that His presence is safer than your control, that His faithfulness is steadier than your certainty. This sacred trust is not loud. It is not dramatic. It is quiet confidence in God's nearness. And when you reach this place, you realize something beautiful. God is not just near. He is carrying the weight you no longer have to hold. Conclusion: closer than you think, faithful beyond measure. God does not draw near to impress you. He draws near to dwell with you, to walk with you, to shape your heart from the inside out. And for those who live like God is everything, His nearness is not always announced. It is revealed through transformation. If you have recognized these signs in your life, take comfort. God is not distant. He has not forgotten you. He has been quietly, faithfully near, softening your heart, strengthening your spirit, carrying your burdens, and drawing you into deeper trust. What you are experiencing is not coincidence. It is communion. Living like God is everything. Does not make life easier, but it makes life anchored. You are no longer searching for meaning in noise. You are no longer striving for control. You are learning to rest in His presence, to listen in stillness, and to trust in ways you never could before. Do not rush this season. Do not question the quiet work God is doing within you. Intimacy with God is not built in a moment. It is formed through devotion, surrender, and trust over time. And when God draws near, He stays. If this message spoke to your heart, take a moment to pause and reflect. Share what God has been doing in your life. And if you desire more messages that deepen your faith and strengthen your walk with Him, like, comment, and subscribe. God is closer than you think. And for those who live like He's everything, He always will be.